You all right, everyone? Just bear with me whilst I do the usual back office admin bits. Um, what's going on here? There we go. Cool. Right, I feel like I've missed something here. I've muted YouTube, which is good, better than normal. Oh, so I've got to put something in the chat. Hold on. Nope, not that one. I'm getting there, guys. So yeah, anyway, whilst I'm doing this, welcome everyone. If this is your first time in the live stream, it's just basically us trying to be helpful and trying to tell you or trying to just to do this. I can't multitask, can't talk and say this. There we go. Right, yeah, done. And then pin that, and then we're good. Right, yeah, cool. So yeah, welcome everyone. Yeah, we're just here to be as helpful as we can be and try and answer questions as they come in. There's a couple of questions that have come in through the week on the comment section of the channel. I will prioritize questions from the week that have been anonymized because that makes it easier, and questions need to be anonymized in the live stream chat just to protect your own identity, really, and also boil down what your question actually is, and kind of separate out what it is, the legal bit that we can actually help you out with. So, yeah, again, if you kind of don't do that, if you don't follow that, I will politely delete it and then ask you to rephrase it. So just as an example of that, rather than saying, I'm currently in temporary accommodation and I've been here for 10 weeks, and I've got kids, just say, what if someone was in temporary accommodation with kids for 10 weeks, what would the law be? Something like that. See what I mean? It's not legal advice. So again, it's very difficult to even kind of fully grasp the situations people are asking about. So we'll try and give you little kind of nuggets of information rather than advice or anything like that. So do treat it with a pinch of salt. We'll try our best. Other than that, I think that's it really. If you're in the chat, if you're a regular, please say hello. I might as well just do the whole YouTube thing and say, give the video a like and a share if you would. That'd be great. But other than that, we'll get started. So let me get the new screen up. Hold on a minute. Getting there. I knew there's some stuff I haven't done. Well, this is weird. Word is doing something weird on my computer. That's now crashed. Awesome. Yeah, I'm getting there, guys. So first question is a pretty straightforward one, to be honest. In fact, let's just do gossip for a minute. I did have an LGO case, which was interesting from earlier today. But Shannon, did you want to talk briefly about what you've been up to today? This is pretty cool.
Yes, so I also work for ExpertLink, which those who are watching that don't know is like a peer-led national organisation that does work around co-production and lived experience. And today we launched our co-production guidance. It's sort of specifically around day centres, but I personally think it's quite applicable to all other charities in the sector. But essentially, like 5 different day centres helped combine this. And there's like a picture on what is co-production, why do co-production in action. That's like off the top of my head, I should know this, like 11 case studies. Sort of talks about chapter on organizational culture, involving and valuing people with lived experience, and then sort of evaluating and monitoring co-production. So it's sort of aimed across the board. So for frontline workers, for clients, for funders, for sort of senior management. And I'm hoping it's just a really useful guidance for people to use if they're wanting to involve lived experience, which I think, not to speak for everyone here, but we're probably a big fan of that. Holds the answer to a lot of the sector's sort of problems. So yeah, that's available to download as a PDF and on ExpertLink's website as well. So that's quite exciting. We had some cool people there, some good discussions and like practical difficulties around lived experience as well, because it's not just a walk in the park.
What was the most interesting question that people were asking about in terms of like when you got to the Q&A, or like what an interesting one, maybe not the most one, but
An interesting one was there a ceiling to lived experience? So at what point does lived experience involvement stop? Or what point does it have to stop because then it becomes not lived experience, or and just sort of how far you can take it, which I thought was quite interesting. I think that came from a local authority worker actually. It might have been MMHCLG civil servant as well. So yeah, just really sort of trying to push the bounds of lived experience far more than sort of like your basic survey or anything like that, which is still good to do. Don't get me wrong. And the guidance sort of covers that actually it's going to look different for every organization. Um, and don't worry if you can't like governance and lived experience, like just focus on what you can do. But that was quite interesting because, yeah, how far can you actually push it, I guess?
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. Sorry, I'm just multitasking, but I'm more excited than I might sound. Um, yeah, cool. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I've got probably more questions, but we won't take up time on the live stream doing it. I'll ask you another time, Shannon. Um, so there's one LGO decision from the week which I thought was vaguely, well, I say vaguely interesting. It was interesting. From I don't know how to say this, Blaby. It's in like Norfolk, I think. It's weird kind of spelling, weird kind of place name, but yeah, it was what was interesting. What it says a domestic abuse case. Can you guys see that? Yeah. So this is the code here. If you want to find out yourself, there, just put it into the old LJ website. But something about this was basically the LJ criticised them for not having a trauma-informed response to domestic abuse, and I'm just wondering where it's actually going to say that. Probably be somewhere around here. So essentially, there's the actual kind of gatekeeping here. So when Miss X approached the council for assistance in June 2023, the council had reasons to believe she may be homeless eligible and priority due to raising that she was a risk of domestic abuse. The low threshold to offer interim accommodation was met, but the council failed to offer interim accommodation. So again, that's kind of very kind of standard sort of case. Feel like there was something about I mean again. So this there's more to it than this bit here. So paragraph 65. Within 3 months of the final decision, the council has to agree to remind all homes to staff the low threshold. But here, ensure that training in trauma-informed communication is made available to its homes staff that communicate with domestic abuse victims. Now, I thought that was interesting because I've not seen it before from the LGO, but I just thought actually we've certainly kind of asked questions around the training councils get around trauma-informed stuff and domestic abuse training in general. So I just thought it was interesting. I mean, it's quite a weak statement in terms of the staff have access to it rather than actually them having to do it. So I don't know how many housing officers would actually choose to go and do trauma informed whatever communication because I think it probably just essentially be like more work for them. But yeah, it's an interesting one that the LJO is even picking up on it. So as I said, I'm sure there's a bit in here which will kind of talk about why what the housing officer did that was not trauma informed. But yeah, so have a little look. I'm gonna have a proper look later on just to see what's in there. But yeah, I just thought it might be of interest to everyone. Um, I don't know if I smell or something. We've only got one live viewer according to my stats here, and we've had no questions come in, so that's unusual. So if you are out there, say hello, just to check the actual thing's working all right. Um, and it's saying 0 views. That's weird. I don't know what's going on, guys, but yeah, let's see what happens. We've got one question. Well, I've got two questions for you. Let's do that then. So the first question is, I'll just get the old Word document actually working this time, and it's a really easy one. So what do you do if you make a subject access request and find out that housing entered your date of birth incorrectly on their record? So I mean, fairly. I mean, in one sense, it's not minor, but it's probably it's unlikely to be consequential to whether there's a duty or not. But still, it's important for the council to have the right data because that could probably come back in various ways. Like kind of you might get allegations of benefit fraud or something like that, or something like that even. So effectively, the answer is everyone's got a right to correction. So you've got a right to access, which is the ability to make a subject access request and get your records, and you've got a right to correction, which is essentially you can write to the council and say, yeah, you've got my date of birth wrong, and they just need to change it. Now, I would probably first off start by just kind of writing to your housing officer and saying, look, you've got my date of birth wrong. Can you sort it out? Rather than kind of making a big deal of it. But if they don't do it, then you can kind of go to the data protection officer, the DPO, and just say, can you ensure that it's done? I mean, it's good that whoever's asked this question is kind of checking through the records because there will probably be like a number of inaccuracies which are worth correcting. So yeah, you've got that. I'm trying to think what other rights you've got in the data law. You've got a right to restrict, I think. So which is kind of you can basically say who the data shared with, with a few exceptions. But yeah, there's a few other rights as well. But yeah, say right of access is the most important one, but there is this kind of right of correction that you've got. So hopefully that's answered that question. Um, yeah, my YouTube's been really weird this week. Maybe I was going to plug my internet and see if that makes a difference. And then the other question we've got, and if no one asks a question in the meantime, we are going to have a very early finish, which is yeah, not a problem. But let me just get up the old second question, which is a little bit more to it, which is, can I refuse an offer if I'm disabled and been offered a flat with the fifth floor? So um, I guess we're very quickly into the idea of suitability. And so accommodation, any accommodation that the council offers you has got to be suitable. And there's a number of things, there's a lot of things they have to take into account there, one of which is going to be any disability and any reasonable adjustments they need to make. Now, I would say the only way that this would not be really, really easy to challenge would be if there is a lift. And I don't quite know how the law works when there's a lift, because I'm sure when the lift works, it's possible to kind of access it as someone with a mobility issue, for example. But if the lifts frequently don't work, then obviously it becomes a very different matter. And I think in a lot of tower blocks, lifts quite often are out of action. So yeah, I mean, I think if there's no lift at all, then I think that's a very straightforward refusal. You just write to the council and say, almost like kind of complain about it. To be honest, just say, look, I've been offered this flat where clearly it's not suitable for my mobility issues. Can you offer me somewhere else, please? But if not, but yeah, if there is yeah, I don't know, guys. Have you ever worked in cases where you've kind of got a lift and that kind of becomes an issue in itself because it doesn't work? I don't know. I'm just thinking like post Grenfell as well. Like, um, I think a lot of people would kind of legitimately be very worried being in a high rise anyway. If there's a fire and they've got a wheelchair user or something and they can't get downstairs, that would be pretty terrifying. So yeah, anything that you guys have come across before in your casework?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I I had some problems with lifts in the past. I mean, this is going back a few years. When I was working in Wandsworth, which had a very high level of tower blocks, a lot of people would refuse properties with lifts because they said they were always breaking down. In fact, when they went to view the property, for instance, it was broken down. But the problem is then the council would fight this by producing the maintenance records and saying, look, it's broken down only this few times, and when it has, it's been fixed, within a short time. So we think it's okay. But I suppose the problem with the lift is that if there's a fire, then it may be not working. And normally you get advised in a sort of emergency situation not to use the lift, don't you? So it might be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've never known of a property being the suitability being challenged because it's a fifth floor with a lift. I mean, fifth floor without a lift, obviously. Um, but it might be worth having a go post Grenfell and say that people are they've got a genuine fear of living there, and it would, that they'd live their life in a sort of constant fear of something happening.
yeah. I mean, I guess, and just to try and answer the question as broadly as we can. Um, we're assuming here that we're talking here about disability that relates to someone's mobility, but I guess
Yeah.
there would also be situations where someone's mental health would potentially have an impact on a high-rise block. So I've worked with someone before who was terrified of heights and had some evidence of that from the GP. So I was able to challenge the suitability of an offer of like a 10th floor offer or something like that. And there's also, I can't remember the name of the case. It begins with an O, I think, but where I think I've talked about it before in the live stream, where this person had been tortured, and there was a particular feature of the physical feature of the accommodation they'd been offered, which reminded them specifically of the torture room they'd been in. So it's like a round window, kind of that was kind of set them off. So and they successfully challenged that, I believe. So there could be kind of ways of challenging that. Otherwise, in terms of how to do it, um, the textbook advice is always accept it and then challenge it. But I think with a situation like this, if it is just this straightforward, where it is just clearly that it's not suitable, then probably just complain about it and just kind of make a bit of a noise about it now and just say, just clearly someone's just not done the job properly, and make sure that this offer is suitable. So yeah, we got anything else to say on that one? If not, we might be a very short night, guys. So just a comment coming in there. So so yeah, I think it sounds like it's just a bit of good news, really. So non-priority case, waited 3 months, but council got a nice studio flat in West Drayton. Where's West Drayton? Is that London? I don't know. Yeah, we've got nods there. Private rent deposit scheme, £160 Argos voucher, £700 to spend on designated furniture website. That's very cool. So yeah, that's clearly a council kind of going further than they have to do. You might also there might be other pots of money around as well. I'm just going to find out where West Drayton is, because if you've got, like, for example, an Emmaus in your locality, um, then you can. I mean, I'm just talking about the Emmaus that I've got experience with in Bedfordshire, but for someone who's been homeless and they're moving into a flat, they'll give them a £250 voucher to spend in their store, which goes a very long way in Emmaus. So okay, so it's right near Heathrow. I'm not sure where the nearest Emmaus would be. There's one in, like, Lambeth, I think, but I don't know if there's one anywhere nearer than that. But there might be some. Like, it's probably worth just asking around as well for local charities, just to see if there is any other grants available. Things like, I don't know if you've got carpet or not, but if there's no carpet, there might be occasionally there might be something for that sort of thing, and also like white goods. So I don't know. I mean, £860 in total. I mean, I guess it depends what, how much stuff is already in the flat. If it's already furnished, then that would be pretty straightforward. But if it's not, then that's probably not enough. Yeah, cool. Right. So yeah, good news for that person. Well done. Yeah, yeah. I think that's nice to hear that kind of people are actually getting housed. That's it then, guys. We have no more questions coming in, so we will call it a night. So thanks very much for being here, Will, Shannon, and Karis, and for all your input tonight. Yeah, if anyone's got anything they want to say, as I say, it's just very low numbers this week. We usually bring like sort of like 15 or 20, and we've got 5, and I think at least one of them's me. So yeah,
So
yeah,
as we have time, should I just add on to the second question?
yeah,
But
go for it. Yeah,
yeah, it's also about maintaining your independence. Or so with your argument with the council, if the lift breaks down, how you do maintain your independence. So part of their assessment with people with disabilities is if they can maintain their independence as much as possible. I mean, and that will be a part of if you're on the 5th floor and the lift does break down, although they do maintenance on it, you would still affect your independence.
yeah, cool.
That's
I mean, yeah, I'm interestingly, I mean, I'm not going to talk at length about this other case. I was just finding some stuff out about today for someone, but the Care Act may well have some useful stuff to say about this kind of thing. So, I mean, I'm never really understood. Yeah, this kind of the Section 1 duty to promote the well-being of adults in the district or whatever it is. I've never really understood how kind of tangible that is. But certainly the people that work within the kind of Care Act remit kind of say that there's quite a lot to it, and so it seems like it's quite kind of an aspect which you can use quite broadly in lots of different situations. So whether you can kind of maybe kind of add that to what you're saying, Karis, in terms of that need to be independent, that need to kind of promote the well-being of adults, and therefore not putting them in a high rise when they have a disability might well be a good argument.
and safety. So it's also safety and independent, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. I think I guess that councils post Grenfell, like I would imagine that they're all panicking. A lot of high rises still have cladding on it, which is flammable. But ultimately, they all know that there's nowhere else to put people, so someone has to go there, and that's probably what the response you're going to get if you go to a council. So, yeah, cool. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Yeah, we'll call it a day on the live stream there. And maybe there'll be more people next week. Will, you're up on Monday, aren't you? I'm around on Monday, so trying to work out how to turn this off. There we go. Yeah, cool. Good night, everyone. Sorry if we missed any questions. That was really easy.
Can I ask you one quick question,